Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Story Archives. I'm your host, Mario Busto, and I'm bringing you a solo episode today. A solo episode that I really wasn't planning on more than a week and a half ago. Nobody requested it. It's not of the upcoming shows that we have planned, but it is a pleasant surprise. And that's what we do on this channel is, we like to bring you, if there's a surprise show that comes out of nowhere, give you a bonus episode, a little small bite-sized piece. You go about your day, whatever you're doing, and maybe you got something out there that you might be interested in. But as much as life is seasonal, and as much as things come and go in terms of your interests and what you might be up to, recently I've been kind of hooked on the pirates genre, from binging the world's most famous anime, One Piece, to playing Sea of Thieves, the video game, which just came out on PS5, to this show that has been on my list for a while, a show that has been around since 2015, actually, which is interesting because I think that was around the age of the gray area anti-hero protagonist, the guy who is the good guy but kind of has his own moral code, his own ambitions that the audience can't help but root for. And so the show is very much driven by key, iconic, kind of just lightning rod type figures who have to carry the entire show with them. So the show with the Pirates theme, brought over by Netflix, is called Black Sails. Launched in 2015. It's a Starz show, which I don't really watch many of because Starz has always been that kind of weird channel that maybe they lump it into a bundle you have on cable. But it's never been something that's just commonly on the cable box, which when this show came out was very much still a thing. Streaming was there, but it definitely wasn't at the level that it is today. And so what I think is going to happen with shows like Black Sails, which is clearly already happening because I'm doing a podcast about it, is that these great shows are going to be rediscovered. Right now, I'm calling this a season 1 review, but really it's kind of almost a season 1.5 review because I've already started season 2 as of recording this. It is Sunday, May 19th, and I wanted to fit in a pod because I don't feel it's right to leave this podcast empty without an episode at least once a week. So wanted to do a little season 1.5 recap of my thoughts so far, what I'm enjoying about the show, pretty much just the general thing that we do on this channel, and then to kind of push things forward a little bit. We are planning some other series coming up. I think we will be diving into Fallout. I think Zach is going to join me on that one. Either way, we're going to have coverage for Fallout. I'm hoping to do Shogun. June is going to be jam-packed. We have The Bear Season 3 coming out. We have House of the Dragon Season 2 coming out. And damn it, that's good enough as it is. So whatever happens there is there. But we have been discussing doing Fallout. But I've been hooked on Black Sails, and I went through Season 1 this week. And I had to do it. Once you start it, you just keep on going. And I'm in the mood for the pirate stuff right now. I even want to rewatch Pirates of the Caribbean. So I haven't done that yet, but I think Black Sails kind of cover that. But Black Sails comes out around the time of Game of Thrones too, so it's very unforgiving. Some of your beloved characters, by the way, spoilers will be happening. This is a full-on season 1 review. Your beloved characters will die. Supporting cast members who kind of play huge roles, like Gates, who is the bald quartermaster for Captain Flint, our protagonist, played by Toby Stevens, who does a hell of a job, man. This, mind you, I said this at the start of the episode. This show comes out around the same time as shows like Vikings are coming out on History Channel, where you also have iconic characters like Ragnar Lothbrok, which I recommend that show as well. I'm not going to do any spoilers on it right now, but they're very much carried. If this character doesn't work as Captain Flint, the show doesn't work. So that casting is probably the most important one. Of course, you have other key characters like Eleanor Guthrie, played by Hannah New, and Captain Charles Vane, played by Zach McGowan, who is a little bit too he's a little bit too well kept. Like his beard is just always perfect. His stubble is always perfectly aligned. I mean, he's living at this point probably in the 1700s of whenever this is. This is like the golden age of pirates going on in this. Yeah, it's literally 1715. So I did get that right. It's the golden age of piracy. It's taking place in New Providence, which is by Nassau, which was like I guess if you want to call it the capital of the pirate world at that time, that's what it is. And the most feared pirate at this time is Captain Flint, who has a very interesting muddled background, similar to other. I mean, they definitely took and pulled from other areas. I didn't do much research on Captain Flint prior to this, but it has me wanting to go back and read actual pirate history books, right? That's the beauty about shows like this, which was what I did kind of with the Vikings, where I was reading the saga of Ragnar Lothbrok, and things like that. And that's what these shows do, is it kind of opens you up to reading into the actual history. And I'm almost scared. The reason I haven't done research on Captain Flint, who he is because I'm on season 1, and I really don't want to get spoiled of what happens in season 2, 3, and 4, which, look, if you are able to watch a show like this years later, I mean, this is 9 years later that I'm watching this show, it's a miracle. Like, it is literally a miracle of God if you don't get spoiled. Like, for example, my co-host Zach just started watching Game of Thrones, or he just got through Game of Thrones, which we mentioned obnoxiously almost like every single episode. He was being quiet about it for about 7 seasons, and then he decided to open his mouth and share it, I think, with like a family member or something like that. And a family member absolutely butchered, like ruined the end of the series for him. So he made it like almost the entire way through, and then ruined it for himself by telling people that he was watching it, which was, you don't want to do that. And I'm kind of doing that, but I'm not going to be really paying attention to the comments if I notice any spoilers out there. So bear with me. Anyways, this show takes place during the golden age of pirates. It's led by Captain Flint. He has a very mysterious background that's kind of like Don Draper, right? Where you go the whole first episode of Mad Men, and you think Don is just like this single ad executive in 1960s New York on Madison Avenue, and instead what you get is he's also a family man. He has 2 kids, and he has a wife at home while he's out going around the city and sleeping with various women. And that's kind of like the bombshell drop of, oh my, like it makes you conflicted. Oh, do I like this guy actually, or is he a scumbag? He's cheating on his wife. And in this show, it's not necessarily to that. Well, I guess it could be to that degree, but you find out Captain Flint has a woman, Anna Barlow, who is played by Louise Barnes, who looks very eerily reminiscent of Kelly MacDonald, who stars as Nucky Thompson's love interest in Boardwalk Empire. So much so that I actually got them confused on IMDb just a little while ago. But she is his love interest, essentially, or at least that's what we are led to believe in Black Sails. And she's been brought to this island for... We don't really know. We don't know what the situation is with why exactly they're there. Season 2 digs into it a little bit. I'm early on, so I don't know the full story, but it could have been possibly a love affair where he cheated with his best friend's wife, and then they had to escape to Nassau. But what we do know about Flint was that he was a decorated member of the Royal Navy in London. And I believe he was either dishonorably discharged or whatever it is, but he is now leading a life as a pirate. And really the core where we find ourselves in the season is that he is finally on the cusp of something completely life-changing, which is finding this Spanish galleon that's full of treasure called La Urca. And he is just, where we open up the series is them taking a ship and him looking for a particular page of the captain's log that would lay out the log of the ship and where it's planning to go or where it's heading, whatever it is. And that's where we pick it up. That's where we meet John Silver, who's played by Luke Arnold, and his character, who's kind of scummy, but then you kind of get to love him. But he's kind of like this. He's a conundrum. He's sort of a contradicting figure. He's both courageous and also kind of silver-tongued. He always has he's able to talk himself out of any situation. I mean, I call him, he's like a cat with 9 lives. That's pretty much what he is on this show. He should be dead like 17 times, and yet he survives everything he does. And so what happens is Silver takes the page, ends up memorizing it verbatim, which makes him indispensable to Flint, who has to keep him alive. And then Silver just continues to kind of weave his fingers and get deeper and deeper into every operation going on in Nassau, even helping Eleanor Guthrie remove certain people from her that are trying to threaten her position. And let's talk about Eleanor. Eleanor is the daughter of a wealthy, I guess kind of a corrupt merchant who runs all the trade on the island, named John Guthrie. And at least I believe that's his name. Anyway, so her father's like, let's just call him Guthrie Sr. Because there are a lot of names to memorize here. But she's ambitious. She doesn't necessarily want what her father wants, who is early on in the season arrested and threatened his position, which already is in jeopardy because his family thinks he's pretty much a disgrace to the family name since he deals in stolen goods and selling that said stolen goods from whatever he's doing. So she wants to keep Nassau alive while he's actively operating to make it such an operation that is just not possible to keep running the way it is. So he's trying to redeem his family name, whether for himself or for his daughter, remains to be seen. All right. As the season progresses, you get this layout of a line where not everything we know about Flint seems to be on the up and up. And his crew, from the beginning, almost unnecessarily, in my opinion. That's where you meet Billy Bones, who's kind of an annoying character in this series, played by Tom Hopper. He's a quartermaster, or becomes a quartermaster, or the boatswain. I think he's the boatswain in the beginning, but he reports to Gates, who's kind of like his father figure, and it's just kind of like the entire series. Although Flint goes to lengths that are pretty immoral to try to keep his captaincy, it does feel like they're really planning his mutiny for no good reason in the beginning, because he's keeping certain things to himself about the treasure they're going after. And one of the big things in this series is the captain's constant fear of the perception of their men, which is very relatable, right? In terms of, if you're a CEO, if you're an owner of a company, or if you're in a sports team or whatever it is, the same kind of psychological dynamics exist, right? Although in this show, it's a bit more extreme, right? Because it feels like at all times a mutiny is 2 seconds away from happening, where there's always some guy just conspiring in the bottom decks of the boat, just trying to maneuver his way to a captaincy, which, although is fun to watch, when season 2 comes into play, I am hoping it's a little bit deeper than that, combined with, we're introducing new enemy pirate of the season, right? So, because that's kind of what happens at the open of season 2. There are rival pirate gangs or pirate crews, from what I can tell in the series so far. You have Flint's crew, which is probably the most feared, although probably the most mysterious and epic or fearsome is Captain Charles Vane, but we never see him go out to sea, at least not in season 1 for the most part, right? He's very much in Nassau, and even gets mutinied himself. His crew pretty much removes him because Eleanor is in love with one of the hookers, the local whore, Max, who's able to seduce anybody. I mean, she's half naked half the show. And I will say that about this show. Although it's meat and potatoes and a great narrative drama, like very good. There's mystery, there's action, there's just about everything in this. They really drive sex and nudity to an extreme here in ways that were very common, I feel like, in that time in the 2000s and like around 2015, even like before that. Just so much nudity, so much sex, to the point where I almost don't think you see that so much in shows these days. But they really would, man, push sex almost to sell this thing like it's like soft porn. I don't know, but they really do drive it. And from what I see on some of the forums online, when I looked up this show, was some people were like, oh yeah, that kind of goes away, which is just like Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones was pushing sex in the early seasons, and I think it's just really a cheap way these networks would get people involved. But yeah, she's half naked in just about, not every single scene, but she gets tossed around from person to person, and she gets it really rough in season 1. I'm not gonna lie, she like starts as Eleanor Guthrie's love interest, right? And she's off limits to everybody on the island. And then she conspires with John Silver to sell this piece of the page to Charles Vane's crew, which ends up pretty much getting her thrown around as the crew whore for Cher. That's pretty much like, that's her role for a few episodes there. And then she manages to get in as a equal partner with Rackham, who's an interesting character. He's the quartermaster to Charles Vane. He's kind of like the witty, very clever, sort of the John Silver-esque character in this show who uses his mind. He's very much not a fighter. He likes to outthink his way out of different scenarios. And interesting enough, he's actually Charles Vane's quartermaster, which you would think somebody like Charles Swain, who's very much Charles Vane, that he is very much kind of like led by his emotions, led by his passions, led by kind of like an old tribal-esque view on leadership, right? Where if you're the strongest, you get to rule. And that continues to develop later in the season, where Charles goes and takes out, I guess, his old leader and literally kills the guy, it seems, and takes his men. It's kind of interesting that him and Rackham do partner up in that way. But there's just so many interesting dynamics going on in the show at all times. There's so much to kind of get drawn into in terms of the story, whether it's the treasure hunt of the Lurka, whether it's the political intrigue of who's going to stay in power, who's going to become captain, what secrets are we going to find out about Captain Flint next, what's going to happen with Charles Vane. Why is he having these weird dreams about this barbaric, terrifying looking dude? All these various storylines that kind of come into play. So much so that I do wonder where, they do continue into season 2, some of the storylines. And I do like the fact that things don't wrap up because very neatly at the end of season 1. It kind of just is a continuation heading into season 2. But well worth it. Well worth it, in my opinion. All right, some of the annoying characters of the show, if we want to talk about them. The whole point of season 1 for Flint is this mission of Lurka. So much so that his relationship with Barlow's frayed. She's miserable on the island. She's having sex with pastors. I mean, it's not literally like all the time, but I think she kind of does it as self-preservation, right? Because back in those days, if you were a woman living alone, everybody was up in your business, pretty much, of what you were up to a negative degree. And so she like seduces the local pastor who comes in to try to do Lord knows what, but he was there for I don't know, ill intent or whatever it is. But either way, she is discontent on the island, so much so that she leads Flint into a trap. I will say this, and I had this conversation with my cousin who watched the show. He was kind of like one of the first stamps of approval. I was like, all right, I'll watch the show because we tend to like a lot of the same shows. For being pirates, Flint's crew is like the biggest bunch of cupcakes in the world. I mean, these guys are taking a vote on who takes out the dog to the park. I mean, they vote on everything, okay? Billy is the most annoying low IQ character in the entire show, and I'm sad to say that he survives what happens to him later in season 1. But this constant moral quandary of these pirates on this boat. I'm not saying be like Vikings that are coming in and like raping and pillaging, because if you watch the show Vikings on History Channel, these Vikings never do anything that's like above. Like they don't ever go to that level. So they really try to paint the Vikings like in a clean light, right? Because if they go into a village and just kill everybody and like enslave everybody, it's gonna be kind of hard to love Ragnar Lothbrok after that. But either way, the timing of a certain mutiny in this show, from a little dweeby Dufresne, who's this little guy who wears these little spectacles. He's just a dweeb. The timing of calling for a mutiny when you have a Spanish warship down your sights is the dumbest thing I have maybe ever witnessed on television. I was yelling at my TV when it was occurring. Just things like that really do bother. I think I'm making it sound worse than what it is, but in that moment, you are full on into you have descended into the darkness of Captain Flint. Like, you're after the treasure with him the moment that happens. And what I really enjoyed about this show is that things don't always go according to plan, right? So like there's a specific shot when they see, for example, when Dufresne calls for the mutiny, and he's literally calling for a vote right there to pretty much depose Flint as a captain. There's a shot where you see the Spanish man-of-war, which is a huge ship that has dozens of cannons, maybe 40 cannons, 50 cannons, I don't know, just on one side. When it turns and you see Flint with his telescope, and he takes it down from his eye, and he just has this look of, well, it's over, because they turned sideways in such a way that they were absolutely dead in the water, and that's how they go down pretty much at the end of the season, and that's where season 1 cuts out for the most part. But characters I really enjoyed. I think Captain Flint is a fantastic character. Like, he goes into the pantheon of the great gray area characters, going so far as literally killing his best mate, Gates. I thought, who I loved, who was probably my second favorite character on the show up until that point. John Silver, at first you don't really care for him too much, but he grows on you more and more as the season goes on. And then John Silver, it's just like, he's like a less likable, I don't know, how do I put this? I feel like I always use Game of Thrones characters as my comparables. Like, Jack Rackham is like Tyrion Lannister. You know, there's just different comparisons that I like to use. But John Silver, he becomes more and more likable. Similar to like how you don't like Jaime Lannister in the beginning of Game of Thrones, and then later on you love him. That's kind of the way you feel about John Silver, at least the way I felt. One nitpick with the show, the teeth are too white. Everybody's teeth are too white. I think season 2, they downplayed that a little bit, but Captain Flint's teeth and John Silver's teeth in season 1, I mean, put them on the cover of a dental magazine, how nice those teeth look. I mean, just white as paper, just Colgate white. Absolute. I mean, it puts me to shame, at least. Just tarnish them a little bit. Just a little bit. It doesn't have to be like over the top, distracting, disgusting, rotten teeth, but just a little bit. You know, they're living in the 1700s. Eleanor Guthrie looks always made up and well. She always looks great. Max, too. She's been, an entire Pirates crew has run through her and passed her around as like pretty much like the neighborhood hooker. That's kind of like what happens to her for half of a season. And she looks like she's just not been through anything, you know, towards the end. Like, she's not psychologically destroyed. She kind of just goes into, damn it, she's like Littlefinger. She's the most politically devious of everybody on the show, pretty much. So that's her whole bit. And then you have, I love the conundrum of Flint, right? Is he a man who's on a mission? Is he a man who's for revenge? Is he a man who's lost his way because of his obsession with this gold? And this sub-story plot of a man who wants to be king himself. Like, you know, he wants to be the pirate king. That's where this show is heading, right? Is that he wants to be the pirate king. When he gets this treasure, he wants to rule Nassau. That's where this is going. But will he get there? Who will be in his way? How does Charles Vane come into play now that he takes control of the fort? He's pretty much the military muscle of the island. And what happens with Flint now that they've been able to hijack this warship? You know, something that's just so evident in the show is that your ship really determines what goes on out there. Like, if you have one of those Spanish man-of-wars, which I don't think they have, they do have a Spanish warship. But if you got one of those powerhouse naval galleons, there ain't nobody taking you down out there unless they have 3 guys manning the ship and they're not able to do it. But I will say there are moments with Flint. The one downside of his character being so gray area is that he does really kill people. Like, I mean, he pretty much tried to kill Billy. He tries to kill anybody who gets in his way. Doesn't matter how close they are to him. So he kills Gates. He kills Morley. And he's very devious. And in a way that not even the audience can trust him after you watch him all season. But you still root for him. You still root for him because at least I felt personally, I feel like if you're the captain of a pirate ship, you do kind of have to operate a little bit like you know what's best for everybody, and everybody doesn't know what's best for themselves, other than the leaders. You know, like you bring the leaders in with you, you do it. But these are supposed to be pirates, guys who are lawless. The show does paint them as men who just want to be free, but you do meet more barbaric pirates as the show goes on. At the end of the day, these are pirates. These are guys who like rob and kill innocent people on the oceans who are just trying to make a living as merchants. And this show is kind of, you know, oh my goodness, Captain Flint lied to us because he has a game-changing treasure that he wants to find. Oh, big whoop. He's the captain, man. Like, he gets to do that. He's not, you know, well, I guess he does kind of sacrifice people, but I guess we can agree or disagree. Let me know your thoughts about Captain Flint. Let me know what your thoughts are about Black Sails if you're enjoying the show. If you're liking this new approach by Netflix, sort of fill in the gaps. They're filling the gaps between their own productions by bringing on good shows from other channels, other networks, from Max. You know, who knows? People might be able to cancel their Max, their Starz subscriptions. I wonder if there's going to be a turning point at a certain point for these companies like Max, like Starz, any other channels that are doing the same thing, that they're going to be like, wait a minute, we're losing money on subscriptions because all of our best shows are being licensed to Netflix. I do wonder if at a certain point that becomes an issue for them. So, all right, y'all. I hope you enjoyed this mini episode. I know it was a bonus episode. I know nobody asked for it, but you got it anyways. I feel like I'm your TV nutritionist telling you what to do. I recommend Black Sails as of season 1.3. I'm like 3 episodes into season 2. I recommend it. Be aware. There's a lot of sex early on. There's a lot of nudity going on. Probably not the best show to watch with kids in the house. But it's a good show. If you can get past that and the fact that they definitely use sex and naked women to attract viewers, then it's a good show. The drama's good. The writing is good. The acting is good. And I don't know why I didn't start it sooner. So either way, let me know what you think. Email us at contact@soapbox.house. There's also a way for you to write on the Spotify episode. You could comment there. Make sure to leave us a review. 5-star reviews helps. And even if you want to put those 5-star reviews into words that let us know what you think about the show, if you like it. Hey, if you like the show, don't give us 4 stars, give us 5. If you're already at 4, just round it up. You know what I mean? And as always, like I said, email us at contact@soapbox.house. We have a Patreon if you would like to support the show in any way to help us in financing the productions for this. And stay tuned. We are planning on several shows in the future. Fallout, I don't know if we're going to do episodically. We might kind of just bunch those into a few different episodes covering the entire season because June's going to be jam-packed. So stay tuned. We're kind of in a transition period from where we just ended 3-Body Problem, and I didn't want to leave you guys hanging. So if you're going to watch Black Sails, I hope you didn't listen to this full episode yet. But then again, maybe you don't care too much about spoilers, and this is okay for you too. So anyways, have a great weekend or rest of whatever weekend you're having out there. Have a great week, and I will see you on the next episode of Story Archives.